joining me, Adeolu. We're here today to talk a little bit, very exciting, about the Nigeria launch on the 26th of June, and then just about some ideas that you have, or what are your view or your, almost want to say your purpose going forward from a Nigeria perspective. So I want to start off by saying just to the audience or people that are watching this video, we launched the Shared Value Nigeria on the 26th of June. Very exciting. It was a really, really great event, wasn't it, Adeolu? It was.
It was really, for me, the capstone for my birthday month, just a week after my birthday. So yeah, I love the event. The feedback has been really positive, even post the event. Even now, I'm still receiving feedback about, oh, the launch was great, and what you guys have planned afterwards, etc. So people were very excited and captivated.
Yeah, I always think when you do this type of thing, this launch, now the work really starts. Are you with me? Because it's really nice having everybody there and telling them about everything. And now we really have to start working. So just for all of you as well is, I think, and I'm not, please correct me if I'm wrong, Adeolu, there were probably about 63 people in the room with us, which is really great for us. And I think, you know, if we discount all of us, it were probably about 52 or so businesses in the room, which was really, really amazing. And I think I could even feel the energy in the room, and it was very positive because we had some big names in the room as well from that perspective, didn't we?
We did. Of course, I thank our sponsors who also supported us even during the event, so not just financially, but actually participated in the event. Folks like AXA, like Unilever, like Zenith, we're all there represented, like Nestle, we're all there. So I think that was really great. But in addition to them, there are other big names, and I don't want to start naming names, so I'm sure I'll forget a number of them. But not only the corporates, a lot of the organizations that are already doing work in the impact space, in the sustainable space, in the ESG space were represented as well. And that's really the goal of what we're trying to build here at SVN.
There's this perception out there in business, you know what I mean, that ESG is the be all and the end all, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you and to try and for me, it's quite important from a shared value perspective to ensure that people understand that if you don't do that value creation for all your stakeholders, then what does your ESG reporting look like at the end of the day from a matrix perspective? Are you just ticking boxes, or are you really actually addressing those societal and environmental issues, you know, that we say that business through the shared value lens can profitably address? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Adeolu, or what is the thoughts in Nigeria? Is there a big ESG drive at the moment? You know, where the organizations, all they want to do is now report on ESG, because it happens down here south now that everybody, you know what I mean, ESG, that's all you hear at the moment. Yeah. So your thoughts?
Yes, similar to here, and I think that is actually ramping up. I have fellow collaborators who perhaps their focus was more around diversity and those sort of topics, who are starting to pivot into the ESG space. I've seen people in my network actually start ESG organizations in the last 6 months. I've had clients who have various shareholders coming with various requirements around ESG measurement, which can be a little bit annoying for the company themselves, because as you said, it's not around ticking boxes. It shouldn't be around just pure measurement. Yes, what gets measured gets done, understood. However, if you're not doing it for the right reasons, how sustainable is it? If I'm just doing it because a shareholder is breathing over my shoulder to do it, that's different than if I really think that this is a critical part of my business strategy. And so it's not around the E or the S or the G, but really around sustainability, really around creating value for the company and for the communities around me.
Yeah, I think for us, whenever and I'm sure it must happen to you as well, when you're sitting in front of a new organization where you're talking shared value and you're talking ESG, it is at the end of the day, Adeolu, it's about the sustainability of the Africa continent, and if we call it, this is what I always say, we call it social impact, environmental impact, we call it profit with purpose, we call it shared value, but at the end of the day, at the core of it all is the sustainability of the Africa continent. Also wanted to ask you a little bit as well, is the business culture because for us, and that's why I'm so glad we've got you as a local partner or a local person in Nigeria, because I think it's so important from a cultural perspective to understand. And I think before we went to Nigeria, when we came for the event, so I sort of personally looked a little bit at the personal culture from a business perspective, and I think also you reconfirmed it for me as well. There's very much a respect for seniority. Am I right in saying that? Do you know what I mean? So that high. Pardon?
Age and seniority.
Oh, is it?
Age is a big factor as well, very much so.
Okay. And then also based on personal relationships as well. I mean, it almost, in some of the research that I did, it almost indicated that those personal relationships is a prerequisite, you know what I mean, in Nigeria business, because I guess, from a social interaction perspective, you know what I mean, you build those relationships. So what are your thoughts on that? Or give us some input on that from a Nigeria perspective.
Yeah, I would say that globally, people like to do business with people they like, they trust, they respect, and here even more so, right? So it comes from the cultural aspect where family and society and community are very important. So building upon that, it makes sense that sort of just flows into the business aspect, of course, in a bit more, we hope, a bit more formalized structure. And so you really have to sort of battle maybe in a negative, but let's say a balance that we need to find, if I try to frame it more positively, where you want to bring and build on those positive aspects of our culture that does value people, that does value relationships, that does value conversation, but make sure that it's done in a structured and transparent way, so that whether it's employees, whether it's partners, whether it's investors, we all understand why and how things are moving forward.
I also wanted to ask you, we've just come back from Ghana, and I was amazed about the robust entrepreneurship sector that they have there. And I know that you're also passionate about that as well. And I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit more about that from a Nigeria perspective, because I think that you also have a very robust entrepreneurship community, because I had the discussion with somebody down here in South Africa the other day that was saying, they take these young people in and they train them. They sit at home, then they get them into a training program, but then what do they do afterwards? So my answer to that is always, don't train them, to go and work for somebody else. Train them to become entrepreneurs and build their own businesses, So your thoughts on the robust entrepreneurship sector in Nigeria?
Yeah, for sure. It's not something that really needs to be encouraged or trained right now. It's almost just a part of how the work culture is, or the professional life is, in terms of young people. They want to be their own bosses, and maybe they see us or their parents and thinking, well, this is not the life for me to be sitting 40 years in the civil sector, or to be a middle management in a company, and what do I have to show for it? But rather, I want to build something. I want to contribute to society in my way, and I want to be my own boss, which I think is great. And the numbers speak for themselves, right? So Nigeria has definitely been up and above number one in terms of investment, foreign investment and entrepreneurship and along the various metrics that are used amongst the big four. I think right now other countries are starting to catch up, which I think is actually a good thing, right? When we talk about diversification across the African continent, it's never a good thing when only one country out of the 54 is doing well. We need as many countries as possible, and even the big four is not enough. The big four needs to become the big 8 and the big 20 and et cetera, until ideally every single country is pulling its weight.
Yeah, I think for me as well, and you're familiar with it. So our focus area is obviously entrepreneurs, our SMMEs and our young ones, the youth, and then women and leadership. And for me, I think that as a Shared Value Africa, it's important for us to support and create those capacity building platforms, I almost want to say, for our young ones, so that they can go ahead. Because as you know, my standard saying is, this is where we're building the global future, from an Africa perspective, because we have, as we all know, this youth dividend, on our side. So, and we are the ones that needs to encourage, the young ones to actually go forth, I almost want to say, and create that Africa we want, that we're all talking about since 2063, but we're not there yet. So I wanted to ask you as well, what is your vision for Shared Value Nigeria? I mean, it's brand new. So if we have to look into the future, what does Adeolu see?
So anyone who knows me or has been around me for a bit will know that I'm always keen on collaboration. I really am passionate about the potential we have here in the continent, the potential we have here in Nigeria, but also realistic enough to know that no one can do this and we can't do this alone. So I would love to see Shared Value be a champion of collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, between the public sector and civil society organizations, all three coming together, and the communities that we're supposed to support and be building to really build the Nigeria that we all say that we want.
Yeah, I think, talking about that, I always remember in my mind this visual that Mark and Michael has. They've got government, they've got civil society, and they've got private sector. And right in the middle, you get, you create that shared value. And what you're saying now is something that I believe in the power of the collective, because that is how we're going to be able to bring about change from that perspective. And I think for us at Shared Value Africa as well, it's those ecosystems and those relationships and those networks that we all bring together, that's what's going to help us to scale, to then capacitate our young ones to try and as we both say, build the Nigeria and the Africa we want. I also wanted to ask you, from a sustainability aspect perspective in Nigeria, sustainability reporting. I know we've looked at the Nigeria Securities Exchange. From a reporting perspective, do you think there's a lot of, I almost want to say, opportunities to work with organizations to try and get them to do more? I almost want to say, and I'm not saying that the Nigeria reports aren't credible, I'm just saying in general, not just Nigeria, but in general, the business community, from a sustainability reporting, because I know we sometimes look at those sustainability reports. I remember somebody asked me once, who reads those sustainability reports? I said, I do.
One of you, I suspect.
So for me, looking at sustainability reports, you sometimes find some questions around some of the reports. So I wanted to ask you, if you have to sit here today and say, from a sustainability reporting perspective, do you think Nigeria is up there, say with, I don't think South Africa is up there, but I'm just saying at the same level as Kenya, the big four that we're talking about. So are you think from a sustainability reporting and an integrated reporting and an ESG reporting, you know, that Nigeria is in line with the other countries in Africa?
I would suspect not, and I don't have data, no pun intended, backed it up, but generally what I see from other instances is that data is much more difficult to get by, to get a hold of in Nigeria as compared to Kenya, for example. Case in point, someone had reached out to me from the Kenya market asking me to help them compare and contrast the West African and East African insurance markets, and asking where they can find sources of data for what I was telling them. I could give them that for Kenya specifically, but I would struggle in Nigeria. I could give them a contact person, going back to your question about knowing people and networking, etc. But when you want to build a robust structure, having to call people to find out information is not sustainable.
Yeah, I think for me, you just touched on something which is so important, is research, data available for us from an Africa perspective. And I think that's why we started the Institute for Competitiveness Africa, and that's why I was in Ghana, because we released our African export competitiveness report for 30 countries. Yeah, so very happy that Badea is going to sponsor the next iteration, which will be for 54 countries. But I think, again, for me, the research on the Africa continent is also something that we're looking at from a shared value Africa perspective, because I think that we do need to do our own research and actually create our own narrative, you know, because I think that sometimes when we look at some of the research that is out there, I think it's just been reused so many times. It's just angled, you know, differently. And then the credibility of the research is then also, you know, questionable as well.
The biases behind it, right? People make the mistake of thinking because they have numbers, they have data, that they're being completely reasonable and unbiased. But any mathematician or statistician can tell you, you can lie with numbers.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, you'll get to the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, you can shape it the way, you know what I mean, like angle it or shape it the way you want to. So I think, you know, for me, I want to say, Adeolu, thank you for being our partner in Nigeria. I think it's about 3 or 4 years coming, hey, since we first connected, and for me it's been very exciting. You know, I know it's taken us a little bit of time to get here, but I still think it happened fairly quickly. So for me, I really
relationships, right?
Pardon?
Again, relationships.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're 100% right with your comment on relationships, because people do like working with people that they know, you know, because there's a trust thing as well. And I was reading up this morning while I was writing this article, you know, when you look at the trust deficit on the Africa continent, you know, how do we ever, sometimes I sat there this morning and I thought, how do we ever get this right? But, you know, shared value gives us a tool to try and work towards getting that trust deficit back. And that was my thoughts this morning, because when you look at the principles and disciplines of shared value, you know, and you look at, like, from a governance perspective about doing ethical business, you know, it's just, we can, from a shared value perspective, try and build that trust again, specifically between communities and you know, organizations and government as well. But I think for us, it's always been a little bit of a challenge with the public sector, you know, from a South Africa perspective. I mean, Kenya was really great, you know, but there are lots of changes in Kenya at the moment, as we know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to see, Adeolu, and I just want to ask you in closing if you have a special message for the Shared Value Africa community out there. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'm really, really so happy that you know what I mean, part of our team So really look forward to next year, or this year, to this year, but next year when we're back in Nigeria, and hopefully before then, to bring back to those businesses that were with us on the 26th of June to say this is what we've accomplished in the last 12 months. So yeah, your thoughts in closing, Adeolu?
Yeah, so what I would say is that for me, I always wince when people talk about the low trust environments that we have here on the African continent. I have to be realistic and understand that it's actually the truth. But then I think about what can we do to change and to build that trust back again. And it really comes down to what is our purpose. When we're driven by purpose rather than money, rather than profit only, and when we're driven by purpose, then we all want the same thing. And that's really when the trust starts to build, because when we understand that we're all on the same boat, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, then we're better able to rely on those around us. So with that, thank you, Tiekie. I thank you as well for trusting us here in Nigeria, trusting Zer Consulting Africa to be your partner here in Nigeria.
Okay, so thank you so much for this. And I just want to say to anybody that's watching this video, watch Nigeria from a shared value perspective.